Now you have Donald Trump threatening a war on the entire BRICS. Everyone who is trying to move away from the dollar is going to sanctions and tariffs. You have Donald Trump also making huge threats on West Asia, because we do have a Trump administration coming. We do have Russia sending probably maybe one of the biggest messages geopolitically with this missile in a long time. And yet we have this situation. How do we square this circle exactly?
We cannot square the circle exactly. We can see points of rupture and points of reorganization and closer interaction, in fact. For instance, it's essential to follow what the Russians are trying to do in terms of creating the basis of a different international financial system. Every time that I spent almost over 5 months in Russia this year, and next year is probably going to be the same thing. And the number one preoccupation when I'm there is to talk to people who can explain me the details, the inner mechanisms of how this whole thing is being organized. It's a monumental task. The complexity is absolutely mind-boggling. But the only ones who are capable of pulling it off are the Russians. They have them in power. They have beautiful brains. They have excellent universities. They fought the power of the collective West, who wanted to destroy their economy, and they counterpunched brilliantly, by the way, several levels. So the problem is to come up with all these mechanisms, all these like what I call the BRICS test lab, testing all these possibilities, then starting their tests inside Russia with Russian companies, and then selling this to their BRICS partners, and especially convincing the Chinese, which are by definition risk averse. Enormous problem, especially Chinese companies. And obviously they are fear of American secondary sanctions. Considering that the Chinese are starting to get the picture of what's going to happen during Trump, in terms of there's going to be a new different tsunamis of sanctions against China. And most of them, of course, will backfire, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, they're going to happen. This Russia-China collaboration on the geoeconomic and financial and finance tech level will increase next year, even considering that the Brazilian presidency of BRICS is not going to be exactly a top 10 hit. Okay, doesn't matter. What matters is that the main partners are working together and closer and closer. At the same time, we have among the BRICS partners, we have excellent prospects in terms of diversification and better geopolitical and geoeconomic relations and closer integration. Example, the Southeast Asians, which are in full force as BRICS partners. But we have an extremely disturbing element, which is Turkey, which is NATO member. The ruling class in Turkey, as something that I learned this past 3 years, going to Istanbul all the time, over 90%, they are Atlanticists, they are pro-NATO, and they are pro-American. The ruling classes, people who have the money, people who actually rule Turkey. And at the same time, they look around Eurasia, they look around BRICS and say, we cannot be, because then we're going to become a minor player in our own continent. So how will the top BRICS deal with Turkey as a BRICS partner? Huge interrogation marks. We're going to start seeing this now during this year. And especially now with the aggravating component of Erdogan being emboldened by his bet on Greater Idlibistan and Turkified Aleppo, let's put it this way. And if he managed to pull it off, wow, he's going to be even more emboldened. And he's going to start maybe dictating terms to other Eurasian big Eurasian actors like Russia and Iran, BRICS, among the top BRICS. So I think that the role of Turkey as a destabilizing factor inside BRICS next year is going to be one of the top stories of the year. No question. And we need to know what Saudi Arabia is going to do. Don't forget that Saudi Arabia is still on the fence. We are at BRICS, but we're not. Okay, what is it? So Russia and China will have to have a serious conversation with MBS and say, okay, what's your game, really? You cannot be sitting on the fence all the time, especially now that we have everybody wanting to get into BRICS. It's more than, it's 30. As it stands, it's not 30, 34, 35. It's over 40 nations who want to be united with BRICS, the 9 BRICS plus the 13 partners. So, so this all is also in flux. It's a different kind of flux compared to the highway in Syria, right? So this is, let's call it, this is the multipolar high-speed rail train, which already left the station, but there are some passengers that are still running in the platform. They want to catch the train. Oh, the doors are already closed, but okay, maybe we can stop and open, and you can come in. But it could happen. So, and of course, the BRICS as a whole will have to face the empire wrath, personified by Trump and personified by his deep misunderstanding of BRICS. He doesn't know what BRICS is. If you ask Trump directly, he won't be able to answer you, not to mention his cabinet and his advisors. So, the whole thing will restart again on a much more psychedelic dimension level on January 20. And then after a few weeks, we're going to have more or less the big picture in terms of how far the empire under a new administration is willing to go in their war against not only BRICS, but the global majority, against 88, 89% of the global population. Can they handle it? Can they sanction most of the planet? Okay, we're gonna so we're all waiting for the cliffhanger, for the next cliffhanger, right? But this Omni war will get into an even more complicated stage. I think many of us have been arguing that the real hardcore war is not Ukraine, which is on the way to being solved one way or another, and Russia will solve this war, and Russia has already won this war. We still don't know how. The real war is West Asia, because it's a multinational war and everybody is involved, and US is involved, NATO is involved, Israel as the total destabilizing factor with an apocalyptic mindset, and all the axes of resistance plus the other regional actors. So this is going to be the fulcrum of how this could lead to either a total disaggregation of an international system, or towards some of these actors having an excess of enlightenment, call it Taoist, Buddhist, Epicurean, Stoic, cynic, whatever, and say, okay, we're going to have to sit on the same table, and it's stupid and completely absurd to have the world divided in two opposing blocks, in shock, in total clash, and still with the possibility of a hot war between them. For the moment, we don't know anything, Danny. We are that's it. We are waiting to get inside the vampire ball. We are just watching the vampire ball from the outside. The real vampire ball starts in January.
Yeah, I wanted to actually pull it up, this threat that we've been talking about from Donald Trump.
Oh my God!
In this war on BRICS.
Yeah.
Note the capitalization here. So he's talking about BRICS countries trying to move away from the dollar while the US stands by and watch. That moment is over. We require commitment from these countries that they will neither create a BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar or the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs, and they should say goodbye to selling to the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker. There's no chance that BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, in any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. Pepe.
It's so childish.
What?
It's like a 7-year-old could have written this.
We've seen 100% tariffs on China's electric vehicles, and China's electric vehicles are actually booming. My question is, tariffs have a very interesting effect on the country that imposes them. 100% tariffs, any percentage of tariffs, usually leads to prices because countries that are tariffed need to sell their products at a higher price in order to get an equal, if not greater, return. So, Pepe, how is this actually going to work at 100% tariffs? If that were to happen on Russia, if that were to happen on China, if that were to happen on Iran, this would be hell to pay, as Trump has said to the Middle East in terms of the so-called hostages. But wouldn't this be hell to pay for the unipolar world, the United States, and its economic situation?
Of course. Well, first of all, nobody's going to buy American products with these tariffs. Second, forget about exporting to the US with 100% tariffs. We can export to the EU. And then the EU, which is going to be sanctioned, of course, by Trump as well. But I would say more specific targets. They can profit from it as well, assuming they would have an independent policy by the European Central Bank, by the European Commission in Brussels. I don't count on it. They will obviously abide by any Trump decision. So that leaves what? That leaves the full global South as a big interacting market. And then the US, we don't care. That leaves the whole of Eurasia, Africa, and South America, and Latin America, mostly South America. It's more than enough. And it will be very, very interesting from a BRICS point of view, because they can even accelerate forms of payment bypassing the US dollar. For instance, one of the interaction between the forms of payment in Russia, Iran, and China can proceed even more rapidly than it is at the moment. We can have Chinese using Union Pay everywhere like they do, but Russians using Mir in China and in Iran, or in other BRICS as well. The BRICS Pay card, which the real test drive is next year, 2025. It can expand to most of the global South and not only be restricted to BRICS countries. And of course, countries will increase payment settlements in their own currencies by passing the US dollar. So you don't even need a BRICS currency for that. And this is a process that is already on. And it's part of everything that is being tested in the BRICS lab, especially in Russia, since early this year. So, okay, once again, if Trump does that, he will inflict a mortal wound against the American economy for nothing, for, bragging rights. And it's not a wonderful economy. It's an economy that doesn't produce anything apart from what comes from Silicon Valley, which is basically services and weapons. That's it. And of course, shale oil. That's it. Nothing else. So nobody is wonderful economy, but not really. But I remember when I was growing up, when I was a kid, for my generation, we were in awe of a lot of American products manufactured in America. Everything from sneakers, t-shirts, Levi's jeans, actual vinyl records, American pressings. We will compare, the American press is much better than the English pressing. Now, American products. We grew up with all that. The cars, of course. Everybody wanted to have a Mustang. This is all over. It's all over. It's not a wonderful economy anymore.
Pepe, any final words of wisdom before we start to close here?
Words of wisdom. You know what? Be Taoist. Cultivate your inner strength. Don't expect the outer strength matching your inner strength. So if you are strong inside yourself, you can face anything, including the possibility of this whole thing derailing completely, which is a very strong possibility for 2025. So when in doubt, respect the Tao.
Yes, indeed. I think patience, discipline, all kinds of applications of that can definitely be exercised here, because we are in for a bumpy ride. I mean, Syria is now going to be a conflict we will be talking about again. Perhaps we should have been before this emergence of a renewed dirty war. But we'll be talking about this for quite some time. We know Russia's ongoing trajectory when it comes to Ukraine, and with NATO, that there is an escalation ladder that they are going to climb slowly and gradually, only when necessary. And there is this concern I want to just close with, of the overall umbrella of economic and political stability for this emerging multipolar world, that I don't think can be understated. As the empire of chaos sows more and more of it, that becomes a consideration that we all have to take into account as we watch and wait for what I think is going to be an inevitably intense response, not just in Syria, but all of these points that you talked about, Pepe. We're going to see more and more involvement. And I believe as we see, China become more and more and more of a huge player on the international stage, we're going to see, in my estimation, that foreign policy of non-interference, while I believe is commendable and probably necessary, if we just look at the overall balance of forces, where China is located, what would happen to the entire multipolar world if China had to come under even more dire straits. But I believe that as you said, Trump coming and what is to come for the U.S. empire as a whole, you can only be for non-interference when you are able to maintain a level of protection and security from the interfering powers. And I believe that is going to erode more and more.